So as Queen in Black continues, and we go on to learn more of Hela's secrets, we also get the long-awaited return of Eddie Brock. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back with Hela's symbiote invasion of Earth underway, with attacks taking place all over the globe, we saw this lead up to her dropping this symbiote intelligence in New York as just a part of her much larger plan, which Hela needs to work when this is all said and done. Because like we talked about going into this, when Hela's wife Karnilla told her what was to come in the near future, pertaining to the return of Null and the battle between light and dark, Hela took it upon herself to get the jump on all of this. She made a deal with Mephisto so she could pop up on Null undetected, which started the process of her taking his power and becoming the Queen in Black, as Null went on his journey to become a god of light. But from the moment Hela took action, because of an agreement her and Karnilla had, Hela's no longer getting help from Karnilla to see what's coming around the corner. And it's done in a way where it's like Hela's making her own fate. But with this being the circumstance, she believes that she's planned this whole thing out thoroughly, but only time will tell if that's truly the case. But nonetheless, as Queen in Black, with Hela taking over the Utopian Kree faction and getting them to make this symbiote intelligence. In more than one way, this attack shows how Hela's moving out here, with the obvious part being her attacks on many locations across the world like Egypt, Italy, and Japan, with her symbiote army being hosted by Kree, Skrulls, Mentelonorites, where in a lot of ways these attacks across the globe are being done as a way to spread the heroes thin. Because at one point when we see Wolverine fighting one of the symbiote Mentelonorites, with the Mentelonorites being an alien species who have reality warping abilities, and they're also no stranger to attempted world domination. But even here in Tokyo, with this thing shifting Wolverine throughout multiple alternate variations, he's able to eventually sink his claws into it just before getting Storm to hit him with lightning as a way of using Logan as an adamantium lightning rod. But even this quick look at what's going on in Tokyo, with Storm and Wolverine, the ex-Vengers, securing the city, this is just another example of how Hela spread her attack across the globe in order to not have all the heroes in one place. Because even with what we saw in Egypt, where Wanda and Vision stopped Hela from terraforming the Earth, this also spread the heroes out. But more importantly, with Hela wanting to terraform the Earth, this goes back to her strategy of wanting to take advantage of the fact that no one remembers Asgard anymore, let alone Asgardian magic, because she wants to turn the planet into one huge Norn stone, which explains the terraformation, but this will amplify her powers like crazy, because she says here, my true objective, the creation of a planetary Norn stone, my rune carved into the bedrock of the Earth, charged with all the power of the Queen in Black, establishing my dominance over Gia herself, and making me the once future ruler of the Midgard realm, unto the furthest star. And when that moment comes, when I claim unlimited power, I will reopen the Rainbow Bridge as a road of conquest. First, Midgard falls, then the other 9 realms. How sweet it will be, and sweetest of all, until that time, Asgard cannot interfere. Finally, I may pursue my goals with none to prevent them, or even guess at them, save for Beta Ray Bill, who none will truly believe. And now when Tyr asks Hela, what about Null? Because she's been keeping tabs on him, but in this elaborate plan, she hasn't mentioned how she's going to handle him. So for now, she just tells Tyr that she's not going to forget any of her enemies on the road to victory. But as for Null, she has a dagger prepared for his back too. She just needs to take it from its current owner, which is why she dropped the symbiote intelligence in New York. Because not long after it gets there, more blue pods arrive. And the blue means they're dealing with Kree symbiotes. Because again, Hela's army's got this whole color code thing going on. And now when they get here just out of instinct and trying to protect Dylan, MJ and Venom tell Black Cat that she needs to get Captain Spider to the Baxter building, because they're agreeing with what Tony said as far as the toxin symbiote being a defense measure and something to keep Dylan safe. But as far as Dylan's concerned, he's had more experience with the Venom symbiote than MJ, and he's not wrong. So he wants to stick around and fight, and he quickly turns into a case where they're trying to protect each other, with MJ saying here, I'm not losing another child, and Dylan telling her, we're not losing another parent. And now in Dylan's case, I get that, but when MJ says this, I'm not sure if it's referring to her history with Paul, or if it's referring to the alternate King in Black future that we saw during Venom War, when at the time, Peter saw what would happen if he weren't able to save MJ from the Arachnio, because if MJ would have died during Venom War, then Peter would have kept on the symbiote indefinitely and later become the King in Black, which is basically what would have happened had Eddie Brock never become Venom, and Peter kept the symbiote on after Secret Wars. And I mean, it would have been either that or what we saw when we covered Spider-Man's Spider Shadow, when Peter took Spider-Manslaughter to the next level. Which reminds me, this universe had a crazy comeback in Death of the Venomverse, which I wish would have been more than 616 Carnage going over there to take on Wilson Fisk. But nonetheless, during Venom War, Peter was shown this alternate future, where as the King in Black in the final battle, Peter killed their daughter May. Because again, I'm not sure if this is what MJ is referring to, because when it comes to what MJ and Dylan have learned, either through the Venom symbiote or through Eddie, he has some things that are kept a secret by Eddie and the symbiote, and others that Dylan and MJ just find out. And there's more that Dylan's about to find out in a moment. Because in addition to him telling MJ that he's going to stick around and fight, he goes on to let her know that he has more to offer, while also telling her that Captain Spider's a dumb name anyway, just before Dylan transforms into Codex, the Chainbreaker. And now this is something Dylan was born with, as far as the ability to separate symbiotes from their hive and take them onto his own. But when Dylan goes to free one of the Kree symbiotes, not only is Hela expecting this move, but she's kind of counting on it. Because when Dylan goes to free this Kree symbiote from her hive, it doesn't work, because she was able to prevent this using Asgardian magic, which no one was able to combat or counter since Asgard's magic was forgotten to this realm, which again is a huge advantage for Hela, because you can't fight something if you don't know about it. But even still, this makes it clear that Hela wants to capture Dylan and use his power for her own. So when the symbiote intelligence tries to snatch him up, MJ and Venom are like, nope, see, that's why we shouldn't have had you out here. So now she's like, we need to put you on lockdown, just like your daddy. But even now, Dylan's confused because since his powers didn't work on that Kree symbiote, he's wondering why Hela wants him. And that's where MJ and Venom tell him, think about it. You free people from hives by taking them into yours. Hela doesn't want the chain breaker. She wants the chain maker. If she gets you on her side, she can control any symbiote she wants. And now that's when another pod drops down, with a more familiar face coming out of it, because this time it's Marvel Boy. So right away, Toxin, who's still on Dylan, he tells Dylan to run. But Dylan's like, nah, I got this. Only to have Marvel Boy hit Dylan with the quantum swap, trapping him inside of the symbiote intelligence. And now this is one of those rare moments where you gotta give the villains their props, because symbiote Marvel Boy, he didn't come to play around. As soon as he showed up, he just handled the assignment. And now while Dylan's inside here, the symbiote intelligence, which is this organic Kree supercomputer infused with symbiote goo, it's searching through Dylan's cells in a very painful process to look for every secret it can find. So when Dylan thinks of this as one of the most painful moments he's experienced, as it goes through his memories, it jumps to the memory of him being killed by Carnage, which was also a very painful moment. But fortunately for Dylan, because this memory was followed by everything going black and him ending up with the eventuality, which is like Eddie Brock's final form, located in the engine room in the Unbeyond, this ends up taking Dylan through the memory of the conversation he had with the eventuality, which at first seems like a bit of a recap from when Dylan was killed by Carnage. And while the Venom symbiote was trying to repair his body, Dylan died and he went to the eventuality. But back at the time, unlike Eddie's trip, we didn't see much of what happened with Dylan. So we're getting more of those details now, as Dylan's taken back into these memories. But for the most part, this kind of plays out as you would expect, because when Dylan got there, he was told he would only get 5 questions. So of course he just goes off like, who makes the rules? Who are you? Only for the eventuality to be like, man, I said 5. Take your time. And at this time, the eventuality went on to give himself the appearance of Eddie Brock to make this easier for Dylan. Because at the end of the day, or at the end of time, pun intended, this is Eddie Brock. But Dylan told him that this appearance doesn't make him feel much better, since it looks a lot like Noel. But future Eddie would also use that as a reminder from time to time, so he would remember where this could go. And at this point, it took the eventuality a little bit to realize how at this time for Dylan, he had just learned many of Venom's secrets, as far as the bad things that Venom had done, like in the case of Lee Price, Mac Gargan, Angelo Fortunato, and especially Anne Wang, which right there had Dylan like, keep my mother's name out of your mouth. And this is when Dylan went on to learn about the future that could be, when he told the eventuality that Eddie and Venom basically deserve each other, and that they should be together ruining each other's lives, because who would care? I mean, as we know, a lot of people would care, because this would send things down a path that we saw glimpses of before, where all the mecha symbiotes were hunting future Dylan, and this future was caused by Eddie getting back the Venom symbiote, which only led to a case of mistaken identity when Hellgate arrived, and the Spidey problem became a Venom problem. And now, had this not been averted during Venom War, Eddie would have eventually turned things around in a few million years, but his attempt to save Earth at that point would have just led to him wiping out all life on the planet, only to then take that baggage off into the next cosmos. And at the time when Dylan asked how does he stop Eddie from doing this, the eventuality told him that he'll know when he's older. Because remember, the Dylan who was killed by Carnage back in the Symbiosis Necrosis event in Venom issue 231, that Dylan was heading towards this future, where he had basically become a version of Cable and traveled back in time to change the future, straight up body slide. But even then, it wasn't like the eventuality could just spell all of this out for Dylan, because Dylan wanted details, because if there was something he needed to do in the future, he wanted to know what needed to be done step by step. So after expressing his frustrations with the cryptic foreshadowing, the eventuality was like, alright, you want the truth? Here it comes. Because if Dylan were to know all the answers and have his future mapped out for him, with every possibility written in stone, this would trap him into one destiny, the ultimate Clintar, the ultimate inescapable cage, just like Eddie will eventually become. So that's where the eventuality was like, is that what you want? Do you want to be me? Which of course for Dylan, that was a no. And I mean a real quick no. So the eventuality was like, okay, so you want to know what happens. You lose people, and then you find more people, more family, and you lose them too. Because it never ends. The world keeps turning. That's the lesson of my life. The work never stops. And the hard work, the work on yourself, that never stops either. Never goes away. Only people go away. Only people. So try to be kind. Try to show grace. Because you don't know. You never know when you'll lose what you had. And it's almost like as the eventuality is saying this, as future Eddie's saying this, he's kind of remembering to take it easy on the kid, because there's a lot of things that Eddie had to learn the hard way. And at the time, this is where Dylan was like, okay, so how many questions we at now? And the eventuality told him 4, which was a total lie. They're way past that at this point. But the eventuality is like, hey man, I make the rules. Then he tells Dylan he can ask him anything he wants to know. And when he apologizes to Dylan for getting heated just a moment ago, he tells him it's because he loves him. And he doesn't want Dylan to end up like him, because he's his father, and no matter what he becomes, he'll always love him. Then when Dylan asked the eventuality what was the last question at the time, his question was, do I ever stop feeling like a worthless piece of you know what? And that's where the eventuality was like, oh man, just give me a hug. And he even switched into regular dad clothes. And now this is what takes us into how important this memory is for Dylan, especially in this moment where in the present day, he's trapped inside of the symbiote intelligence, because he remembers his dad telling him, yes, like you'll feel better. Keep putting in the work one day at a time. One day you won't feel that way. And sure, there'll be more days where you will feel that way because the work doesn't stop, but that's okay. That's the hardest thing to learn, that it's okay to stumble on the way. It's okay to get somewhere and then fall back. It's okay to fall down, just as long as you can get up again, as long as you can keep going, as long as you can come back from it. And these words meant a lot to Dylan. And even now the eventuality is like, man, I wish I was there for you when you needed me to be. But also he wants Dylan to know that he's got this. And the only reason the eventuality limited the questions to 5 is because Dylan already has the answers within him. And he tells Dylan, you're the comeback kid. So as Dylan goes on to remember what happened after that, when he returned to his body and everything that took place during Venom War, he admits that when he woke up, because he felt alone and abandoned, literally left for dead, he called a lot of people closest to him traitors and losers. So even now for a second he thinks to himself like, man, do I deserve any kindness or any grace for that matter? But then he snaps out of it like, no, there's work to do. And he starts focusing on what to do in the present moment, or better yet, figuring out his comeback from this current situation. Because Dylan knows what Hela wants. She wants his power. And like MJ said, that'll give Hela the ability to control any symbiote. So then he thinks about Toxin, who he still has with him. But if Dylan lets Toxin loose, then they'll have both of them. Then it'll be game over. And that's where Dylan's like, nope, don't think about that. Don't think that way. And he tells himself, you've gotten out of worse, you can get yourself out of this. Or maybe you don't have to, just as he hears a familiar voice call his name. Because even though Dylan Brock is the comeback kid, Eddie Brock is still the comeback king. Because now Eddie Brock is back, out of prison, with a bit of help from the sleeper symbiote. You know, with Eddie being locked up in prison after the whole death spiral fiasco. And he's like, sorry I took so long, son, but dad's home now. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone that's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.